Hello, Croeso. Welcome to Tonnau Talks. My name is Dr. Caris John. I'm a Senior Specialist Educational Psychologist in Neath Talbot's Local Education Authority. Today I've got with me Caitlin Davis, who's an Assistant Educational Psychologist, and we are looking forward to our session today, which is discussing confident kids and how we can help our children to become more confident. Just to let you know, this is a pre-recording and we do have listeners listening to this live. For those of you listening on YouTube, we will have questions and answers at the end of this session that our live listeners will be asking us. So if you ever want to join us for a live Tonnau Talks, please join us. We're live every Tuesday between 12 and 1. And we look forward to you join us next time.
So I'm just wondering then, Caris, what is confidence?
So confidence is something that we develop over time. It's not something that we have built into us. So a lot of people think that confidence is something you either have or you don't have. It's a skill, but actually it's something that we can develop and adapt over time. It's a feeling, basically. It's a feeling that makes you sure of your abilities and yourself. Not in an arrogant way, though, but kind of in a realistic, secure way. I know a lot of people who are described as being confident sometimes can be described in a negative way, as that they're kind of, self-assured and they're, got a high self-esteem, and actually they're quite out of tune with or out of touch with other people. But actually, confidence is a really good thing, and it's not about feeling superior to others. It's that quiet inner knowledge that you're capable. Confident people feel secure rather than insecure, sorry, because it's that feeling of that I'm okay and that I'm good enough. And it's not that feeling of I'm the best at everything, which some people think it is. Right from birth, kids learn new skills at a very fast rate. We've talked about this in our previous Tonnau Talks. We talked about understanding your child, about that child development. Our little toddlers, their brains are like sponges. They really pick up things really quickly, and they can be seen as having quite a lot of confidence, especially our toddlers with their egocentric ways. And that's the thing with confidence, is that it comes with those skills. So with those skills comes that feeling of, yes, I can do something. I am capable. And often it's the confidence that really drives our ability to acquire a new skill. As children get older, confidence can be as important as the skills themselves. To thrive, kids need to trust in their own capabilities, while at the same time knowing that they can handle it if they aren't successful at something. It's about experiencing, this ability to gain this skill and become a master of it, but also being able to come back from failure, because that's huge when we're thinking about confidence, is that ability to continue to try new things even after they've experienced failure. It's that development of healthy self-confidence.
So I'm just wondering then, Caris, why is confidence so important?
Well, to put it in a simple way, it's the way we see ourselves is crucial to the way we interact with the world around us. So confidence can be thought of as a positive view in our belief and in our abilities. It supports the development of relationships, so to be able to develop positive relationships with others, with new people, we've got to have a sense of good, confidence there to be able to do that. Again, to be able to succeed with our academic abilities, to learn these new skills such as reading, writing, numeracy, confidence is really important because it gives us that sense of self-efficacy. Now, self-efficacy is something that I feel capable of doing. Okay, so again, there's a lot of these different things that contribute to confidence, such as self-efficacy, such as self-esteem. Now, self-esteem is that value you place on yourself. Confidence is that feeling that you can do things, even hard things. Self-esteem is that value that you put on yourself. And those things are really important when we're trying to develop those relationships to try and increase our academic abilities. They can really affect our resilience in the world. Now, resilience is something that is developed through experience, and resilience is really affected by self-esteem and confidence.
Absolutely. So, why is resilience important?
So resilience, like I say, is that ability to overcome adversity. So resilience is only something that you can gain through experience. So experiencing that failure, and then that confidence to then try new things is that resilience. That is resilience, overcoming those difficulties. Now, resilience is so important because if we didn't have resilience, then when I would experience a negative thing, so for example, if I didn't come first in a race in school, then I would never try a race again because I didn't like that feeling of losing. So therefore, I'm not going to try again. So that resilience to overcome and try new things isn't there. And wow, I could talk about resilience a lot. Hence why next week's Tonnau Talks is about raising resilience. It's such a big attribute, such a big skill. It's really, really important that we develop resilience. And again, if we don't have the confidence first, then it's really going to affect our ability to become more resilient.
Something really important to tune in for next week then.
Yeah.
And from what you've been saying, it's clear that confidence is so important.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, what could we expect a confident child to be like, to look like?
Yeah, okay. Absolutely. Because like I said earlier, it's like what we perceive confident people to look like can sometimes come around as arrogance, So some people might describe a confident child in behaviors that they see as the child is quite bossy, quite demanding, quite controlling. That's not what confidence is. Confidence is that feeling, remember, that we are sure of ourselves and our abilities, willing to take risks. So these children will have a positive image of themselves, not an arrogant image of themselves. They'll think of themselves, they'll acknowledge that they're different to others and be okay with that. They'll be able to make new friends as well. So they'll be able to take that risk in trying to initiate a new friendship, because that's a big thing for kids, but also maintain that. And they're not very anxious around new people. So they're willing to go to places that they are going to meet new people and be okay with it. They can still feel anxious, that's normal, but to be okay and to cope with that feeling of anxiety about meeting new people. Um, our confident children can play in groups, they've got those good skills, they're able to kind of participate with others with different skills and abilities, and they're also feel secure enough to play on their own. They don't feel the need to be protected by a group of others. They feel that they can manage the world environment on their own. And again, that comes with problem solving skills as well. And we've talked about this in our previous Tonnau Talks, where they feel that they can at least try to overcome a problem. And again, that ties in with resilience. But also, if they can't, and that's okay, because as our kids are growing and learning, they feel confident. It's that confidence to be able to ask for help. Okay, so instead of avoiding something and not asking for help and not trying to improve or move forward, they will actually, these confident children will be able to do that. And again, they're proud of their achievements and they're able to accept compliments. So they are able to acknowledge that maybe they weren't the best, but actually what they did was the best for themselves, that they tried the hardest. And again, they can admit that they made mistakes and learn from that. That's a huge skill to be able to have. And that's, again, is admitting that I've made a mistake and then going, well, what can I do next time? That's where they're able to try these new things and adapt. And again, tying back into resilience to be able to come back from adversity, but also that self-esteem is that, yeah, do you know what? I'm not as good as I want to be. So my confidence, my feeling that I can do these things, but also my self-esteem isn't affected by that. I don't think I'm worthless because I can't do these things.
You did a fantastic job of describing a confident child. What happens if a child is unable to develop their confidence?
So, if a child has low confidence, because what we need to think about in terms of confidence, that a child will have confidence in certain areas. So even though we see a child who is maybe, have a very negative view of themselves, and they put themselves down, there is somewhere in their life, in their psyche, that they are good at something. And that's key that we try and tap into. So it's, these children are, when we try and observe these children with low confidence, again, like I said, it's that negative view of themselves and their abilities, put themselves down. They might find it difficult to make friendships, and might be that child that feels victimized. So that child that may be quite unsure of those social norms, and maybe it's certain interactions with others, they may feel victimized. So when they join a new group, they might want to stand on their own and feel less reluctant to engage. They might think everyone's looking at them. They might feel like they stick out like a sore thumb because they're the new kid. And those are normal feelings to have in those situations. But actually, a child who's confident will be able to to function with those difficult feelings and make those new steps. Whereas a child who's not confident won't. They'll often feel lonely and isolated. And again, avoid those challenges and find change difficult. So these are the children with low confidence who are reluctant to go with you to new places, are reluctant to go and do things out of the ordinary because they're unsure and they don't feel they have that inner ability to sit with those difficult feelings, to reassure themselves that actually it will be good and I will actually enjoy myself. They don't have that self-talk. They often, constantly comparing themselves to others, which makes them feel frustrated and can view themselves as lashing out. And when they've got this sort of low confidence, which, comparing themselves to others, often that affects their self-esteem. So remember I said the self-esteem is that a value you place on yourself. Actually, I'm not good enough. I'm not okay. No one likes me. I'm isolated. I'm alone. And again, having those big emotions of low self-esteem, that can affect our children later on in life, when we're thinking about mental health difficulties like anxiety or depression. So it is a really important thing to be able to develop, because it's a really protective factor.
Absolutely. You can see from what you just said there, that without confidence, children can, view themselves more negatively. They can feel like they're less than their peers. This can actually stop them from exploring the world and interacting in a way that's positive for their development. Um,
Yeah, absolutely, Caitlin. I mean, like anything, it's something that fluctuates throughout our lives, when you think about your own confidence, there's some areas that I feel really confident in and others that I don't. And I know that that needs a bit of work. And it's about understanding that, yes, some days I'm feeling more confident than others. Some days, yeah, I can go to new places, whereas today I'm not feeling like I can. It's important that we, acknowledge that it's something that fluctuates on our lives, and also it's impacted by what's going on in our wider world, but it's something that can be worked on. Okay, and this is why we've developed this Tonnau Talk today.
that's so interesting. Cass, would you be able to tell us some more about how confidence develops across childhood and into adolescence?
Yeah, absolutely. So the thing with confidence, Caitlin, is quite fascinating when we're thinking about skills and abilities as children grow. Children's skills and abilities tend to get bigger and better as they develop and grow. However, interestingly, with confidence, we actually see the reverse. So what we find with our younger children, our toddlers, and say under the age of 8, they've got quite high confidence. So you often see these little children that will go to new groups and really fit in with others. And, they'll quite happily go to new places. They'll quite happily fail at learning to read and these things and get through those challenges, and really, thrive in learning environments and learning new things. But with our teens, then it tends to decline the confidence, which is quite interesting, really. Our younger children have a high self-esteem. They see themselves as the best. especially our little ones. And often their views are quite unrealistically positive. That magical thinking, where they think they are the fastest runner, they are the best footballer, they are going to be the best footballer in the world when they're older. And that's so lovely that they have that thought. And it's normal, unfortunately, that our confidence does decline when we get into our teens. When we think about our little ones as they move through childhood and develop cognitively, they begin to then base their self-evaluations on external feedback. So that's where they start to notice, actually, I'm not the fastest. I'm not the best reader. I'm not the best singer. You often see these little children as, watch me do this, watch me sing this, listen to me sing again, look at my amazing drawing. And as they get older, these things start to decline because they're starting to notice that they are different to others. They then start to develop their kind of social awareness, where they start to see themselves in comparison to others, which then develops through their teens, where they start to kind of think about who they are in comparison to their peers. So instead of being the best footballer there is in the world, their ideal is becoming much smaller. So they're starting to see themselves as different, just even within their family life. They can see their elder siblings as being better than them. And often that can make them feel very self-conscious. And actually, it's expected that our older sibling will be better at certain skills. But sometimes for our younger children, that can really affect their confidence and then affect their self-esteem.
So I'm just wondering then, what changes happen during adolescence that kind of contribute to this decline in confidence?
Well, one of the huge things is puberty. Obviously, there's massive changes that go on there. Now, Caitlin, in last time Tonnau Talks, we talked about talking to teens, talked about the changes in the teenage brain there, and it's huge changes that are going on. Essential changes. Again, when I talked about these changes in the teenage brain, they all had a purpose. They were all meant for that evolution to independence. And again, this is what happens with our confidence. Unfortunately, our children are surrounded by social media. Now, we all know that social media, you only see the best bits on there. And it's not reality, it's not the truth. And unfortunately, they use this as that measuring stick for how they should be. And again, it's very difficult to measure yourself up against something that's unrealistic, isn't it? So that is huge, especially for our girls. The differences in body image is huge across both genders, but especially with girls and as they grow, and it really does affect their confidence. They again, our teens, they are now developing this ability to think more abstractly, so they're able to start thinking about their future, who they're going to be. Their individuality starts coming through. Again, they start to explore whether their individual preferences, is that normal? Does that fit in? Because when you've got your younger children, they desperately want to be seen as the star of the show and the best, whereas our teens want to desperately fit in. They don't want to be seen as different. And that's a huge change in their psyche to be able to start to feel that way, and these, that high time of social expectations as well, and, more pressure in life to succeed. When we think about the exams that they're going through, constantly compared against each other, constantly compared against how you performed last time, graded. It's a huge thing that affects our teens, confidence.
Well, teenagers, we know it's such a tough time, and it seems that their lives become so complex so quickly. It's a time when they need the most confidence and unfortunately have the least amount of it.
Yeah.
I know that outside of factors mentioned above, I know that outside of the factors mentioned above, having a fixed mindset can also contribute to difficulties with confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. Having these fixed mindsets can really affect confidence. I'm wondering, Caitlin, is there some information you can just talk to us a little bit about what fixed mindset means?
Absolutely. So, a fixed mindset is part of the mindset theory put forward by Dr. Carol Dweck. And essentially, she argued that when facing a challenge, people generally have one of two mindsets, a fixed and a growth. A fixed mindset is where a person feels they're powerless to develop their skills or improve themselves in any way, as all things about them are fixed. As a result of this, they may avoid challenges they don't think that they would be good at, or they may be unnecessarily harsh to themselves when they make a mistake, as they feel it's a representation of themselves. It's a mindset that can also result in people feeling helpless and out of control, as they feel that they can do nothing to change the situation, which may make them more prone to giving up.
Oh gosh, wow. So that has a huge impact on confidence, doesn't it? Having that fixed mindset.
Definitely.
And just wondering though, how would you know that someone has a fixed mindset? What kind of thoughts would they be thinking?
So, kind of the term fixed gives a clue. So it's that kind of very definitive thinking. So stuff like, their intelligence is stable and cannot change. Maths is a really good example of this. A lot of people feel like you're either good at maths and it's like this innate ability, or you're not,
Yeah. I often hear that in schools where kids will often tell me, oh, I'm dyslexic, and it's because they find reading difficult.
Yeah.
And often they'll say, oh, well, someone in my family's dyslexic, so I must be because I find reading difficult.
Yeah.
And actually, that's often just so that effect of having that fixed mindset is I'll never be good at reading.
Absolutely.
So it avoids them trying, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's that fixed belief of I cannot change anything about this. This is something that is happening to me, and there's nothing I can do.
Yeah.
They may kind of have thoughts like I have to be the best, or else I fail. They may seek opportunities where they can prove their skills while avoiding situations where their weaknesses might be revealed. And that can be really impactful when we think about, developing skills in life and developing new skills. They tend not to respond well to failure because they believe their abilities are fixed and incapable of change. They believe that it represents themselves. So I'm not good enough at maths, therefore I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
More generally.
So you're saying then that these kids, if they've got this fixed mindset, that they feel that they're either smart or they're not. So they're not like able to think about themselves in terms of I'm learning, so I am supposed to find this hard. So therefore I need to persist and keep trying.
Oh, definitely. It is very much a what we'd call perhaps a black and white thinking. It's either or nothing. So they're either smart or they're not.
Okay.
They're either creative or they're not. They're either sport or not. Anything that they may be, you can put in that situation.
Okay.
But if they feel like they're not, it's not something they can do immediately, then it's not something they can do. And like we said, when we think about learning and developing new skills in life, this can be really impactful in terms of their confidence to be able to develop their skills and engage with new things.
And so how does this relate to confidence, this fixed mindset?
When we think about either how children develop confidence or how their confidence is going to impact their development, a fixed mindset will often play a crucial role in this. If a child has such a mindset, it's likely that their confidence will be lower and their social comparisons will become more negative. As suddenly somebody achieving where they haven't doesn't mean something that they can work towards, but it's an active reminder of their failure. This then has consequences for how much children and people are willing to push themselves and engage with challenges, and they may write off whole skill sets in the belief that they are not good enough. They may also actively avoid situations as they simply feel that they can't do it. And we can see a loss of motivation to persist with this mindset, as it's just something wrong with them and there's nothing they can do to change that. It can also create kind of what we call a self-fulfilling prophecy, where because they believe that they're not going to be good at something, they perhaps put less effort in, which results in them being not as good as they'd hoped anyway. We can see that with perhaps exams. So I won't do well on this test as I'm not good at maths. They may revise less, they feel there's no point, and then as a result receive a low mark on the test.
Wow, Caitlin, that sounds like it has a massive impact on a child's confidence and their ability to be resilient in life. You're talking there about a child saying that, self-fulfilling prophecy, whereas I won't do well on this test, so there's no point in trying. And therefore, that just shows how it affects their resilience, because resilience is all about trying hard things and overcoming them and trying it again. So my gosh, what I'm wondering then, what's different about a growth mindset?
So as we mentioned before, fortunately there are two possible mindsets, and the second one being a growth mindset. Cass, would you ever tell us a little bit more about a growth mindset, please?
Yeah. Growth mindset. So, Caitlin, is the belief that abilities and intelligence can be developed over time. So, when a person has a growth mindset, they tend to see all experiences, both positive and negative, as learning opportunities. So, rather than view a setback as a failure, they receive this information and to make their path forward and more productive. So, they'll often see this as, okay, I didn't quite get to where I wanted to get in this attempt, but I can see this is where possibly I went wrong. So right, next time I try it, I'm going to try and adapt my different choices so that I can hopefully succeed this time. And it's having that perspective that encourages continuous learning and again develops their resilience, as we'll talk more about this next time, and their adaptability. So the ability to transfer those skills to other things, It's important to note that most people have fixed and growth mindsets about different situations in their lives, and that both mindsets can coexist. So, it would be wonderful if we all had growth mindsets all of the time, but unfortunately, as we know, the brain is a complex creature. We often will have both growth and fixed mindsets, and that's okay. But what we need to do is acknowledge when we have a fixed mindset, something, and consider ways in which we can improve that and adapt that to a growth mindset. Growth mindset people are much happier. They're more encouraging and positive. They're less judgmental and they're more enthusiastic about new experiences, and they're more successful in every domain of their life in which they hold a growth mindset. So whether that be school, hobbies, friendships, work, it's really, really important to note, Caitlin. I actually read a study about growth mindset, and which describes the impact of a growth mindset on children's motivation. So there was a study done with groups of children. So there was a group of 30 children split into two groups of 15. Now, these children were all the same age and they were all the same ability, so within that range. Okay, so each group were given a jigsaw puzzle. And so these children were around the age of 8 years old. They were given an 8-year-old equivalent jigsaw puzzle each, and they were tasked with completing this jigsaw puzzle. So it was completely achievable a task for all of the children to do independently. Now, one group was told, "Oh, well done, you're amazing at jigsaws, you're fantastic, you're really, really good at that." Okay, so one group were told that. The other group were told, "Do you know what? I could see that you found that difficult in times, but I can see that you persevered. You really tried hard and you actually got through it. Well done for trying." Now, the difference with these two groups is that they were told, one was told a growth mindset speech, and the other were told a fixed mindset. Now, the fixed mindset talk was, "Well done, you're amazing at jigsaws." Okay. And the growth mindset reflected on their ability to persevere and that attempt of doing the jigsaw, even though they completed it, they weren't told that they were amazing. Now, this is where the interesting bit comes to with that piece of research, is that after they were told these pieces of information, they were then asked to go and freely select another jigsaw. So it was interesting that the fixed mindset group picked a jigsaw that was either equal to or easier than the jigsaw that they had completed. Was the growth mindset children, those children that were told, "Well done for persevering," they actually chose harder jigsaws. So they actually felt confident to be able to push themselves and to be able to try hard things just from the language that the adults around them used. So it's really, really interesting, that study, and it just shows the importance of supporting our children to develop a growth mindset and their confidence in themselves and their ability to take on challenges. So you're probably wondering, how can we support our children to develop this mindset?
So, Cass, there's a number of things we can do to support our children to develop such a mindset, including praising your child for their curiosity and effort, but not necessarily their ability. So telling them how proud you are of their persistence in learning to read, for example, but not saying that they're smart for learning to read, which I know can seem quite different to what we're used to in terms of our parenting approach. But by praising their effort over their ability, it kind of helps with that growth mindset in terms of they feel that it's the effort and it's the process of developing that skill or completing that piece of work that is that there is something that is worth something, rather than it being a representation of their internal ability. Welcoming setbacks as learning opportunities, not as embarrassing failures. You could say stuff like, oh dear, you spilled your milk again. What should we do so it doesn't happen tomorrow? Not labeling them in terms of, have you spilled your milk again? You were so clumsy. Being really careful of the way in which we speak to our children, and the way in which we address them when they have made a mistake. Don't set a limit on your child's potential. So don't think about your child's abilities, whether high or low, as being fixed. Instead, encourage them to follow their curiosity and support them in developing their interests. Current research on the brain's plasticity shows that there's always room for learning and growth. Like we said before, avoid labeling your child, even with positive labels, categorical labels. Encourage self-consciousness as well as a fixed mindset. Even if with a positive label, if you're saying to a child, you are so smart, that can, in some children, particularly with low confidence, create a pressure where they may, feel they need to, demonstrate that they're smart over and over, which again can lead to that avoidance of challenges. Don't play the blame game, when your child has a problem. Don't look at something to blame. Instead, focus on what could be done differently going forward. What solutions can you put in place? And finally, teaching your child the basic growth mindset principles, helping them to understand what growth and fixed mindsets are and how they can show up in our language and behaviour. For example, if someone says, I can't do this, remind them to say, I can't do this yet. Carol Dweck, the creator of the mindset theory, kind of definitely talks about the power of yet, as an addition to any sentence. Encourage your child to let you know when you or other family members slip into a fixed mindset, and to think together about how you can, you might reframe that into something that is more representative of growth mindset. And something that can be really helpful here is being mindful of your own mindset. As our children, we're their greatest role models as parents, and they look up to us and they learn how to navigate life through us. So it's really important that you're mindful of your own mind, which is something we'll talk about going forward. So outside of developing a growth mindset, there's a number of things you can do as a parent to promote confidence in your child. Cass, would you mind sharing some of these with us, please?
Yeah, no, thank you, Caitlin. A lot of this is interesting. It relates to sports psychology, because obviously confidence is a huge thing for our, sports teams to be able to have, because again, it motivates them, it helps them overcome challenges. And, it's something that it's really important and valued within the sports field. So, let's replicate that for our parenting tips. There's lots there that you mentioned with developing that growth mindset. That's so important. Some of the things here that we're going to talk about now certainly link in with that, but we're just going to try and explore some other things to put on top of, not only as a parent having a growth mindset. Psychoeducation. Okay, this is something that's really important, and I'm always wanting to talk about the brain and how it works, and also again how it doesn't always do its best for us, because it's very complicated in its nature. But I think it's so important that we talk to our children about confidence. Like I say, knowledge is power. Stress to your child that confidence does not appear, and that's something that needs to be worked on, built on, and maintained. Something that will flow, something that will come and go, and something that we really need to nurture. It's so important that we teach us kids about these skills, about what it is, what it means to be confident, and how we can have that growth mindset as well. Work with them to identify areas of their life they're not so confident in, and how you can work together on that. And I think there's nothing better than a parent sitting with their child and going, how can I help you through this? Because that's what we're here for. We're here to help our children to adapt, to change, to modify, to grow, because ultimately they're our future, aren't they? I think the first thing as well is, moving on from not only talking about confidence and what it means, but it's being aware of the subliminal messages that you may be sending to your child. Now, if you're always cautioning them on taking risks, you might be saying to them, don't do that, because you're worried that they might, hurt themselves or do something that they're not yet capable of. That is going to affect their confidence. Okay. We need to be really mindful about what we are communicating and that what we're kind of expressing to them that we don't think they can do yet. And that can really hold them back, that they can't handle it. They can't make decisions on their own, that they're not capable or they're not trustworthy to do that yet. These messages, whether it implicit, so for example, through nonverbal cues such as, the eye rolls, the sighs, the grimaces, or explicit, as we say, expressed verbally, through these sentences, it can really negatively impact a child's confidence level and their ability to take risks and assert their independence. And I think it's really important that we, with role modeling as well, even if you're not quite feeling it, is to see you tackling new tasks with optimism and lots of preparation sets a good example for kids. That doesn't mean you have to pretend to be perfect. I mean, that is really important here, is that when we're talking about being a role model, there's two sides of this. Number one, you do still have to show your vulnerability and express to children that, I'm finding this really difficult. I'm feeling a bit frustrated or I'm feeling anxious. I need to think about places that I am good at. What do I apply in these places that I can actually use here? Because that's really important because our children often, they learn through social learning theory. They learn from the adults around them performing in ways that they do. Now, if we do not show our children that we struggle and that we overcome adversity, then they're not going to be able to take those risks because they don't see you doing it. And I think it's really important. Sometimes our parents can be too focused on being perfect parents, always having it together, never showing any vulnerability, never showing stress, weakness. But actually, we do need to show our children that. The important thing is about expressing the difficulties, but also showing that we are willing then to make the next steps to try and overcome it. That's really important. And again, with our parents who are feeling, very unconfident, very kind of anxious or worried, again, it's about checking in with yourself, going, right, okay, my feelings right now aren't being helpful for my child to learn. So therefore, I need to express that I'm feeling a little bit unsure here. I think I need to try and work out what I can do differently. Do you think you can help me? Okay, so even if that will really help with our kids, to help them to be able to see that process of overcoming that adversity, developing that confidence, we need to show them how to do it, not tell them how to do it. Okay, again, our words are really important. Our kids are in a very, very challenging world where they're being assessed on their ability in school. They compare themselves against the perfectionism online. We need to keep telling them how much we love them, and what makes them special to us, focusing on specific things that you notice about them, like your growth mindset words, Caitlin, talking about, yes, I think you're wonderful. And yes, I think you can do better at football. We can learn the skill together. You are not there yet, but you can certainly get better. It's about acknowledging that and validating their feelings, because if they're upset with the way they're performing, if we come and say, don't worry about it, you're really good, you're amazing, you're wonderful to me, that is taking it too far. That's the other extreme. What we need to do is validate. Yeah, do you know, I could see that you're finding this difficult. I could see that you're finding it hard. And it feels like you just want to give up. How about we take a step back and let's have a look at what's going on here? It's those words are really, really important, you know. it helps a child know that you think that they're great, but also it's not that they're doing great things, it's about their self-worth, and help them to feel good about themselves. And again, for us, try not to get upset about the mistakes. It can be very frustrating when you've got a child that you've taught the 10 times table one day, and the next day they've forgotten. It does happen. The brain can forget certain things. And again, when we talk about memory, they tend to hold on to things that fill them with pleasurable experiences. So when we've got heightened emotions, that's what we fixate that memory on. So we tend to remember things that have the highest level of emotion. So something that we were very scared, that will be remembered. Something that we had huge excitement and love and joy, that will be remembered. So just remember, when we're trying to learn a new skill, it's not always going to be recalled in that way and fixed to our long-term memory. So just be mindful that confident people don't always get through that fear process. Again, embracing imperfection and individual differences. This is really important because, as we know as adults, perfection is unrealistic, but our kids don't know that. Okay, so we need to send this message through to them, help our kids see that whether it's TV, magazine, or social media feeds, that the idea that others are always happy, successful, and perfectly dressed isn't real, isn't true. It's almost very destructive. We need to remind our kids that being less than perfect is human and totally okay. It's normal. Encouraging our kids to be themselves and show you they are valued for who they are, not for what they do. Okay, remember that growth mindset. It's not you are amazing at jigsaws, it's you are really good at persevering through tough things. I really value that in you. You know, get other kids, to talk about things they're good at, and then share about how they got to be so good at that. How did you become such a good footballer? You weren't born like that. You've developed those skills. I'm wondering if we can use this to be able to get better at maths, helping them to discover their identity and their strengths. It's really, really important to help them then use those strengths and skills in being able to transfer them onto learning new things. And again, encouraging them to try new things. We need to support our kids to be able to try new things, because that is where they can really challenge themselves and show that you believe in them, encouraging them pursue their interests without worrying about whether the outcome will be good, having fun with things. I always think it's really good to try new things with your child and for them to watch you not being so great at it, going rock climbing together, going, learning to bake bread together. And often we'll know with those skills, you'll often have setbacks, but it's allowing those setbacks and not having those setbacks give you that sense of failure. And actually, it's that I need to get better there. I'm not great at it yet. Again, so we're setting those goals. That's really important, whether they're large or small. It's about making them achievable. Okay, achievable goals by encouraging them to make a list of things they'd like to accomplish. What would they like to do? And then it's about breaking that down into smaller goals, realistic ones that you'll be able to see that, okay, I want to be really good at maths, but actually I need to learn these skills first. Okay, or I really want to be good at baking, 3-tier cake, but actually I need to learn the basics of baking first. It's about setting those realistic goals and also allowing for them to experience success instead of focusing on that huge goal at the end, which is so far away, and rightly so. It's about getting, like, let's just work to this step that's a bit closer to us and more achievable. This one is really hard for some of our parents these days, allowing kids to fail. It's natural that we want to protect our child from failure, but it's trial and error is how kids learn. And, falling short on a goal helps kids find out what's gone wrong and that it's actually okay. It also it spurs our kids to make a bit more effort, because they'll look back and go, okay, I didn't do quite well there in football practice. What I need to do is do a bit more, skills-based things, or more practice with another teammate. It's about exploring where I can improve, and that's okay. And again, we need to help them reframe situations that they perceive as negative. It's really, we need to challenge them on that, and it's about exploring. Okay, let's look at that in a different way. Okay, you weren't as good as you wanted to be today. What were you good at? And actually, you turned up. You tried. It wasn't a great day. You weren't feeling 100%, but you're still here. That's incredible. You're persevering. And that's the thing we need to focus on, is praising that perseverance, celebrating the effort they put into things. And again, it's all about that growth mindset stuff that you talked about, Caitlin. Now, again, setting chores. There's so much research is coming out these days about giving kids chores. Now, it's about giving them opportunities to be part of that family, part of that working model, developing their independent skills. Okay, they might complain, but they feel more connected and valued when they're counted on to do age appropriate jobs, like picking up toys, doing the dishes, um, you know, walking the dog, whatever it may be. That are really important skills. Not only develop their self-care skills and their independence, but it helps them to feel part of their family, part of their network, gives them that sense of achievement as well, that they are part of that working environment of the home. So there's lots there, Caitlin, that we can use to help boost our children's confidence. And it comes from our parents, and it comes from the adults around our kids. And, these things, if we can help to try and, promote that positive, that growth mindset, it can really help our children to make those, the necessary risks in life to be able to grow their skills and abilities, be able to develop their confidence, will help with their self-esteem, that value they place on themselves, that they are good enough and that they are okay, they are worthy, and then helping them with that resilience, which then when they experience failure or trauma, whatever it may be, that they think, I can overcome this, I can get better. So it's really, really important.
Lots of fantastic strategies there that that can be implemented within the home, and without not a lot changing in terms of the daily structure and the daily routine.
So yeah, I mean, we've talked a lot today, Caitlin, and I know that there's lots of things that we always explore when we're doing our Tonnau Talks here. We like to end on our top tips, because I know it's a lot for our listeners to absorb. So, Caitlin, tell us now our top tips for today's Tonnau Talks.
So we've got 5 top tips to take away today. So we got, number 1, talking about confidence. What we talked about earlier is letting them know what it is. What does it mean? How can it impact us? How can we develop it? Bringing that into your the conversations you're having within the home. So it's not a new thing to them. It's something that they're aware of, it's familiar, and they've talked about it. Number 2 is, like we said, checking in with yourself, your mindset, and the way in which you approach challenges and approach your own confidence is going to have a significant impact on the way in which your children do, because they're watching. Children, they're always watching their significant role models to see how they navigate the world. And it's also really helpful in terms of, your well-being, your confidence is, checking in, how are you feeling? Number 3, encourage stepping out of the comfort zone. Like Harris said, it's fantastic to push ourselves and to encourage our children to encounter challenges, and if they really, really want something, to go for it, regardless of how difficult they think it might be, or how much they think that they may not be good enough at it. Because sometimes it's nice to just do something for the joy of it, regardless of whether we're going to be good or not at it. Number 4, learning to reframe failure and moving away from fixed abilities. So, if we get something wrong, that isn't a failure, that's an opportunity to learn. Teach your children about that growth mindset and the power of that, adding that yet onto their sentence, and moving away from this idea that, our abilities and our skill sets are fixed, they're predetermined. They're not. we can develop almost any skill set. We can develop, almost any ability with enough, hard work and time and effort. And finally, number 5, being considerate of how you talk to your children, implementing that growth mindset language within yours, being conscious of any labels you may unintentionally, put on them, or the way in which you praise them when they do encounter a difficult situation that they don't have a lot of confidence in, or when they encounter something that they're actually really, really good at and they have a lot of confidence in. It's about, being mindful of how the language and the way in which you talk can support that confidence and developing that growth mindset.
Thank you, Caitlin. There's a lot here that our parents can take away and certainly try out. And again, these top tips are really essential as part of growing our confident children. And again, it's growing our future, isn't it? That those children to be able to overcome adversity, to be able to have that good self-esteem. It's really, really important. Thank you, Caitlin. Now we're going to move on to the section where we have our listeners' questions. So let me just check if we've had any questions come in and who they're from. Okay.
So we've got one just popped up here. So my child is in year 5 and is due to go on his first residential trip. Well, that's a tricky time, isn't it? He has been really upset about going and leaving me. I'm worried that he will become more upset when he is on the trip without me there. What should I do if school get in touch to say he's upset?
Oh gosh, okay. So we're talking year 5, so around the 10-year age.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, this is a really tricky thing because this type of activity is filled with a lot of excitement because it's a trip away with their friends. And again, this child is likely to be hearing the responses of other kids that get excited about it, talking about what could happen. And again, we've got then children talking about all the grand creative things, the imagination going wild that could happen. And, these things are really, really can be detrimental to our children that may be a little bit more worried and less confident about engaging on a school trip like this. So I think what's really, really important is that we sit down, first of all, sit down and talk to our child, asking them what it is that they understand. So again, sometimes when we ask our kids, what's worrying you? They don't know. They've just got a funny feeling in their tummy. And that's where we need to bring out this curiosity. I'm wondering what you're expecting. What do you know is going to happen? Often a feeling of anxiety can just be simply down to the not knowing, the fear of the unknown, isn't it? And that's where sometimes our children might need a little bit more kind of structure, explanation about what they can expect, what could happen. And also what's really, really important is when you sit down and talk to your child is be like, and what if that happens? What can we do? So it's problem solving together. Ultimately, your child will probably say, I don't know. And that's okay because, it's only a 10-year-old child. So what we need to do is think about, exploring the what do they know? What do they already know? Checking out the authenticity of that. So the clarity on, is that realistically going to happen? We need to challenge those negative thoughts. So if they're thinking about these catastrophizing thoughts where they're thinking, oh no, this is going to happen and then this could happen, we need to challenge those. Okay, as parents, we need to say, okay, I get why you're feeling worried, but actually that's not going to happen. You are going to come home. And ultimately that's what we need to be reassuring our children, but also then problem solving, saying, I'm wondering if you're feeling worried at night time, what we can do that would make you feel a bit better. Is there something you can take with you? Maybe you can take, your favorite teddy. Maybe you can take, one of my bracelets with you. And whenever you touch that bracelet, that I'm thinking about you. It's about just making that connection, helping build that, your son feel that he's still connected to you. And also it's about the counting down. It's making sure that they're prepared before they go, because like I said, it's often about the unknown that they're fearful of, and that also the fear of a challenge happening and actually talking through that challenge and what it could mean. Like, for example, they might be a bit worried about doing the rock climbing whilst on that trip. Okay, so if you're worried about doing the rock climbing, what can you do? If you're feeling worried, what could you do? What teacher could you go and talk to? So then you're helping them to problem solve, because I'm giving you the little hint there that you need to go and talk to a teacher.
Yeah.
You know, so even if you've got a child who's like, I don't know, you can say, okay, well, what teacher would you need to go and talk to? What would you need to say to that teacher so that they know you're worried? Okay, you're helping through those questions. You're already given the answer in that question. And that's really important. Another thing you need to be mindful of is going back to a moment where they experienced adversity, where they experienced something similar. So do you remember that time when we were going camping and you were really worried about that? You were worried about going camping. Do you remember that feeling you had? Remember you were worried about animals in the night coming to our tent? And do you remember what that camping trip was like? Do you remember the fun that we had? And so it's really important with our memories is to link back to memories where we've overcome adversity, because often there's a positive memory within that we can reflect on. Now, that memory and helping linking back to a time where they have gone away and done something new and which they were worried about will help them feel more resilient, as in, oh, okay, I can do it, build that confidence. I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, thank you so much for sending the question in. I think there's something that I think it's that time of year where something a lot of young people are going through at the moment is their first or perhaps their final residential trip in their primary school. So we just had another one pop in as well. Hi, I'm really concerned with my daughter who is in year 8. She finds it really difficult to stick at one hobby. She used to be really sporty and interested in all activities, but recently she goes for a couple of sessions before giving up. This is usually after she thinks she hasn't done well at it. What can we do to support her to find and stick to a hobby and for her to enjoy it?
This sounds really tough as a parent, especially when you were saying about how your daughter was really sporty when she was younger. And that's just reflected in what we were talking about today with confidence being much bigger when you're younger and actually decreases as you age. Now, this is certainly something that we can support with. And also, when our child is trying out new things, it sounds like to me she's really trying to find her place in life. And being really sporty as a child, maybe as she started to grow, she may have experienced moments where she wasn't as good as she once thought she was, because that happens with our younger children. Because, like I said, they all think they're the best footballer in the world until they get to a certain age where they start to then compare themselves to others, not to like the Ronaldos of the world, but it's their peers within their classroom. That's when or within their team, and that's where they can start to then their confidence start to decline, and that's probably likely why she hasn't engaged in these sports anymore, because it's a really tough feeling. Think going from a place where you thought you were the best and then thinking that you've got worse. Actually, you haven't got worse. Your confidence has declined. You're probably much better now, physically capable. When you think about the skills that you've got, than you are, than you were when you were like 7 years old. But there's that huge confidence when you're that age. And what we need to do is to remind our our daughter about how, when you were younger, when you were like in football or whatever team she was in, talking about those good times, that good feeling, talking about those moments where she persevered and did well and met new people. And I think what's really important here is when we're going through those tips that I mentioned earlier, is reminding them about confidence. Say, do you know this is normal? This is normal to feel like this, and reflect on yourself as a parent. Say, do you know, when I've got to do something in work that I really want to do, but I'm feeling really nervous about, maybe it's a presentation in work or, really important piece of work, I feel anxious, I feel worried, and I feel like I don't want to do it. But then afterwards, when I've done it, my gosh, I feel a sense of relief, and I feel like, wow, I'm so proud of myself for doing that. And again, use yourself as a role model. Again, what I would also do is that maybe look back to going to doing things that she's familiar with, that she feels more confident with, so that she's not feeling kind of behind her peers in those groups, in those activities that you're trying out that are new. But again, it's normal that they want to try and find their identity and find what makes them who they are. So support them to do that. So for example, if they want to, try a new skill such as rock climbing, go with them, do it with them, try and link them up with a sibling or a cousin or a friend in the community who goes to these clubs or whatever that you want to try, so that they can feel that. And remember to recognize the effort they're putting in. So even though they may have left in tears, actually you were so brave going there to start with. You were really brave. I'm really proud of you for doing that, because that's tough. And I know that you enjoyed some of the work that you were doing. It reminded you of how well you were at football and when you were younger. And I'm wondering, whether we can try that out. So certainly go back to the tips that we recommended within this Tonnau Talk, because there's a lot there that can help your daughter to feel confident to try these new things and to develop that self-esteem as well. I think is really good.
Oh, definitely. Absolutely. So I think that's all the questions that we've had for today. And it's it marks the end of our Q&A session. Thank you so much for submitting questions, those who did. I think they were really, really helpful for other parents to hear those questions, maybe their children in a similar situation, and to hear our responses. And thank you so much for attending our live talk today, and those I suppose who'll be watching on YouTube. We really appreciate all of your support, and we hope that you can join us for the next Tonnau Talk, where, like we said, we'll be talking about resilience. We very much look forward to discussing that with you next week.
Diolch yn fawr. Thank you very much for joining us today for our Tonnau Talks on Confident Kids. See you next time.